Democratic legislation, once enacted, is popular.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was on NBC's Meet the Press over the weekend and reacted to Democratic Senator Krysten Sinema's obvious bullshit for why she wants to uphold the filibuster, which of course requires 60 votes for anything of substance to pass instead of just 51 votes. So check out this clip and I'll discuss exactly why AOC is right.
I know where you stand on the filibuster, so I'm curious what you thought of Senator Sinema's op-ed where she made this defense of keeping the filibuster. And she wrote, would it be good for our country if we did this, basically using the getting rid of the filibuster, only to see that legislation rescinded a few years from now and replaced by a nationwide voter ID law or restrictions on voting by mail in federal elections over the objections of the minority? Look, the argument she's making is, let's say you get rid of the filibuster, you get all of this progressive change that you would like to see, and then all of a sudden the roles are reversed and everything gets rolled back. Is that a good enough defense to you for the filibuster?
No. I mean, it's essentially an argument of saying, well, why do anything at all in case something in the future may change it? Political systems all across the country, all across the world, pass legislation with majorities and they're fine. And frankly, here's the thing, is that Democratic legislation, once enacted, is popular. Republicans have tried to gut Social Security. They've tried to reverse the ACA. They've tried to claw back on legislation that has passed by simple majorities in the Senate, and they haven't been able to because Democratic policies are popular. And once they are enacted, they are very politically difficult to undo. And so, I do not believe in the defeatism of saying we will lose in the future and this will automatically mean that anything we do now is going to be reversed, so we might as well not do anything now. Our job is to legislate. Our job is to help people. Our job is to do as much as we can. And even if that's the case, even if that is the case, wouldn't it be better to get people health care and voting rights for 3 years instead of 0 years, even if you concede the point that I don't even think is true in the first place? And so beyond that, then the argument is, okay, why 60 votes? Right. Why not stop at 70 votes? Why not need 80 votes to pass any legislation? Why defend a 60-vote filibuster when the Senate already amplifies minority power so that the 50 Democratic senators already represent millions and millions and millions more Americans than 50 Republican senators? And so I would argue that 50 Republican senators is already a built-in kind of filibuster-esque firewall. All
right. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, really appreciate you coming on, sharing your perspective with us.
I always find it funny when, whether it's AOC or Bernie Sanders, someone's on one of these shows that makes a great point. It just happens to be the end of their appearance, and they go to commercial. There is no coming back from what AOC said. She is exactly right. There's nothing to argue there. There's a lot to go over. I'm not going to hit every point she made, but let me just start with this one big one. Over Sinema's argument that there's no point getting rid of the filibuster now because what if in 4 years Republicans take power and they just reverse everything? Then why do anything at all ever? Why pass anything? Because in 4 years or in 8 years or in 10 years, maybe it'll be reversed. How stupid of an argument is this? The idea that Sinema thought people would fall for this, and unfortunately, you have Chuck Todd here using it as a point. This is the kind of bullshit that should be called out immediately by the media. Forget having a politician on to react to it. Chuck Todd should be able to think with his own brain and realize this point makes no goddamn sense, because then you might as well have nobody do anything ever. Because what if it gets reversed in a few years? It is such a stupid point. And then AOC goes on to discuss how Democratic policies are popular. And of course, they are very, very popular. So just to, on some of the issues here, of course, Social Security, incredibly popular. Look at the numbers here. So majorities across demographic groups say no cuts should be made to Social Security benefits in the future. So the percentage of people saying no reductions should be made, we're talking all adults, 74%, but you go down the list, point by point, even, the very young who don't benefit yet, 65% in support, and across the board, people of course support Social Security. It's why the GOP have been so unsuccessful in trying to make any cuts to it. Also, on the issue of healthcare, support for Medicare for all. I mean, there's a lot of polls on Medicare for all, and the vast majority of them have a majority of people in support of Medicare for all. So here's one from The Hill showing in 2018, October 2018, 70% support Medicare for all. In April 2020, 69% support Medicare for all. So you see here fairly consistent in terms of the support for Medicare for all. And if you just poll Democrats, 87% of Democrats support Medicare for all. States that Biden won in the Democratic primary last year, like Florida, those exit polls asked people, do you support Medicare for all? Even though Joe Biden won Florida and he does not support Medicare for all, the majority of people in Florida support Medicare for all. So, and not to mention the wage increase that Florida pushed through, even though it's a largely red state. So you have here, so many examples. Another one more recent for what they're talking about right now, the infrastructure plan. 65% of voters support higher taxes on corporations to pay for Biden's infrastructure plan. So there's no opposition to this. So, often how Chuck Todd and the media at large want to frame these discussions is how the politicians in Washington feel about these issues, so if they support it. But if you look at the general public and what they want, they lean progressive on almost every single issue, especially when it comes to the economic issues, when it comes to higher wages, corporate tax rates, tax on the wealthy, healthcare, go down the list. The vast majority of people side on the progressive end of those issues. Yet you have this discussion where it's acting like, most people are moderates, so, Sinema, Joe Manchin, they represent the middle of the country. No, they do not. They represent their corporate interests. They do not represent the middle of the country because the middle of the country supports Medicare for all. The middle of the country wants higher taxes on corporations and so on. So just the amount of bullshit coming out. And this really should have been the end of any discussion at all about can Democrats work with Republicans to get 60 votes to pass anything of substance. When Republican senators blocked the bill to create a commission to probe pro-Trump Capitol insurrection. So this was a bipartisan commission to investigate what happened on the Capitol. Republicans blocked that. So if they're not going to do the bare minimum in terms of investigating the insurrection, they're not going to support any real help for Americans. This discussion, at this point, it's over. We understand where the people sit, what the people actually want in terms of infrastructure, what they want in terms of healthcare, what they want in terms of a tax rate for corporations, the wealthy. We know where the people are. We understand why it's not getting done because of the wealthy and corporations influencing politicians, and also because many politicians are just in their own heads. They're looking for how they will benefit at the end of the day. So if they benefit these certain interests, then once they're out of Washington, they can get a cushy job somewhere, making a ton of money doing nothing. So we understand the influences. We understand why things aren't getting done. Why do places like NBC or CNN or MSNBC continue playing this game of, wow, why can't these people just get along and work together? Why are we pretending? We know what the reason is. And we also know the reason why they aren't telling you the real truth, and that's because they themselves are run by massive corporations. So they're not going to focus so much on the influence of money on politics when they themselves are invested in that influence. So it's a whole cluster F, for lack of a better term. But at the very least, occasionally there will be people on like AOC or Bernie or Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush that will call out the bullshit.